The October afternoon pressed against the windows of Community Center, casting long shadows across the polished linoleum floor. Outside, autumn leaves danced their final waltz, spinning and twirling in the crisp Michigan wind. Inside, the room hummed with a nervous energy that seemed to pulse between the scattered chairs, the faded motivational posters, and the expectant faces of local families. Sarah watched her daughter carefully, her fingers unconsciously tracing the medical alert bracelet on Emma's tiny wrist. At just 3 years old, Emma was a miracle, a word Sarah had heard so many times it had lost all meaning. Born at barely 2 pounds, with a constellation of medical challenges that would have defeated most, Emma had become a testament to quiet strength. The community center's main hall had seen countless events, but today felt different. Local law enforcement had organized a special outreach program designed to bridge the gap between the police and the community they served. Children sat cross-legged on the floor, their parents hovering nearby, a mix of curiosity and mild apprehension etching their expressions. Officer Mark stood at the front of the room, his uniform crisp, his posture a perfect blend of approachability and professional discipline. Beside him sat Rex, a German shepherd whose presence commanded immediate respect. The dog was no ordinary police canine. His deep brown eyes held a story of survival, of transformation that mirrored the complexity of the room itself. Emma sat slightly apart from the other children, not from choice but from necessity. Her medical history had taught her to be cautious, to observe rather than participate. Her mother had spent countless hours helping her navigate social interactions, celebrating even the smallest victories. Today, Emma wore a light blue sweater that her mother had carefully selected, soft enough not to irritate her sensitive skin, bright enough to make her feel special. The room was a tapestry of sound and movement. Younger children wiggled and whispered, older kids attempted to look cool and disinterested. Parents checked their phones, exchanged knowing glances, kept a protective eye on their little ones. Officer began his presentation, his voice a calm, steady presence that seemed to quiet the room's restless energy. "Today," he was saying, "we're going to talk about community safety. But more importantly, we're going to talk about how we work together to keep each other safe." Rex sat motionless, a living statue of discipline and training. His ears were slightly forward, alert but not aggressive. Years of training had turned him into a perfect partner, a guardian who understood his role with an almost supernatural clarity. Sarah noticed how Emma's eyes never left the dog. While other children looked away or got distracted, her daughter watched Rex with an intensity that was unusual for a child so young. It was a look that suggested understanding beyond her years, a gaze that seemed to see something others missed. The room's lighting created a soft halo around the figures: the uniformed officer, the trained police dog, the children, the parents. It was as if the stage was being set for something extraordinary, though no one could have predicted what was about to unfold. Years of medical treatments had taught Emma to read people and animals differently. Where others saw a police dog, she saw something more. Her tiny hands, which had been poked and prodded more times than most adults would endure, now sat quietly in her lap. Her breathing was steady, her posture calm. Officer continued his presentation, demonstrating some of Rex's training techniques. The dog responded to each command with precision, a living example of discipline and partnership. The children watched in awe, some giggling, some sitting in wide-eyed wonder. But Emma remained still, completely, utterly still. Her mother knew that stillness. It was the same stillness she had seen in hospital rooms, during difficult treatments, during moments of profound connection. It was a stillness that spoke of something deeper, something beyond the surface of what everyone else could see. The community center, with its worn linoleum and faded motivational posters, seemed to hold its breath. The autumn light continued to stream through the windows, dust motes dancing in the golden afternoon rays. Outside, the wind continued to move the leaves, nature itself seemingly pausing in anticipation. Something was about to happen, something unexpected, something that would change everything. And no one in the room, not the parents, not Officer, not even Rex himself, had any idea what was coming. The story of Rex began in a place of darkness, far from the polished community center where he now sat with unwavering discipline. 3 years earlier, in the outskirts of Detroit, he had been discovered in an abandoned warehouse, a skeletal shadow of a dog, chained to a rusted pipe, surrounded by the remnants of a life of abuse and neglect. Animal control had found him on a bitter January morning, his coat matted, his eyes holding a terror that seemed to speak of unspeakable cruelty. The rescue team had approached cautiously, expecting aggression, fear, or complete withdrawal. Instead, they found a dog whose spirit, though battered, had not been completely broken. Doctor, the veterinarian who first treated Rex, would later describe him as a miracle of resilience. His body told a story of systematic abuse, old fractures that had healed improperly, scars that mapped out a history of violence, a spirit that had been pushed to its absolute limits. Yet, something in his eyes suggested an unbreakable core of hope. The rehabilitation was long and painful. Rex flinched at sudden movements, cowered at loud noises, and seemed to expect pain as a constant companion. But slowly, meticulously, the team of veterinarians and animal behaviorists began to rebuild his trust. They used techniques of gentle exposure, positive reinforcement, and endless patience. Officer Mark entered the picture 6 months into Rex's rehabilitation. A veteran of the K-9 unit with a reputation for working with the most challenging dogs, he saw something in Rex that others had missed. Where some saw a broken animal, saw potential, a guardian waiting to be awakened. The training was unlike anything had experienced in his 15-year career. It wasn't just about teaching commands or developing police dog skills. It was about healing, about rebuilding a spirit that had been systematically destroyed. Miles away, in a different kind of battle, Emma's story was unfolding with equal complexity. Her journey began moments after her birth, when complications arose that would challenge even the most optimistic medical professionals. Born 3 months premature, weighing just 2 pounds and 2 ounces, Emma entered the world as a fighter. The first months of her life were spent in a neonatal intensive care unit, a landscape of beeping machines, sterile white walls, and constant medical interventions. Her mother, Sarah, became a fixture in the hospital, her entire world reduced to the tiny incubator that housed her daughter. Doctors spoke in hushed, uncertain tones. Each day was a battle, each breath a victory. A rare genetic condition complicated Emma's early years. Her immune system was fragile, her body seemingly at war with itself. Medical treatments became a way of life. Blood draws, specialist appointments, experimental therapies that offered more hope than certainty. Where other children played, Emma learned to endure. But endurance was not the same as defeat. Sarah was a force of nature. A research scientist specializing in pediatric immunology, she approached her daughter's challenges with a combination of scientific precision and maternal love. Every setback was an opportunity to learn, every challenge a puzzle to be solved. She read medical journals at night, consulted with specialists across the country, never accepting the limitations others tried to impose. Emma developed a unique way of experiencing the world. Unable to engage in physical play like other children, she became an observer, reading people's emotions with an intensity that seemed beyond her years. Her medical challenges had forced her to develop a sensitivity that most adults never achieve. Both Rex and Emma were survivors in the truest sense. They had faced challenges that would have broken most: physical pain, medical uncertainty, a world that seemed designed to defeat them. Yet here they were, preparing for a moment that neither could understand, but both seemed inexplicably ready for. In the community center, Rex's past was invisible to the casual observer. He sat with the precision of a trained police dog, his muscles coiled, his attention perfect. No one could see the scars beneath his coat, the memories of chains and cruelty that he had somehow transformed into strength. Similarly, Emma appeared to be just another small child. Her light blue sweater, carefully chosen to avoid irritating her sensitive skin, gave no hint of the medical battles she had fought. Her quiet demeanor masked a resilience that explanation. Two survivors, two souls who had learned to see the world differently, waiting for a moment that would change everything. The stage was set. The players were in position. All that remained was the spark that would ignite their extraordinary connection. Time seemed to slow down in the community center. The fluorescent lights cast a clinical glow, making the scene feel almost like a stage set, carefully arranged, waiting for something extraordinary to happen. Officer continued his demonstration, his voice a steady backdrop to the building tension. Rex moved with calculated precision, responding to each command with a perfection born of countless hours of training. Most of the children watched with a mix of fascination and mild fear. Hands clutched parents' legs, whispers passed between siblings, cameras on phones discreetly captured the moment. But Emma existed in a different reality. Her tiny hand, pale and delicate, seemed to move of its own accord. The movement was so subtle that at first, nobody noticed. Sarah, her mother, was adjusting her position, momentarily distracted by a text message from the hospital about Emma's upcoming specialist appointment. The room continued its gentle hum of activity. Then came the moment. Emma's finger extended, pointing directly at Rex. Not at Officer, not at the other police equipment, not at the other children, directly at the dog. The world seemed to pause. Her lips parted, two words emerged, simple, profound, unexpected. Home safe. The words hung in the air, charged with an energy that explanation. They were more than just sounds. They were a declaration, a recognition, an understanding that transcended language. Sarah's head snapped up, her scientific mind immediately racing. She knew her daughter's communication challenges intimately. Emma had struggled with speech, her medical conditions making even simple words a challenge. Most of her communication had been through careful gestures, occasional single words, a complex language of looks and subtle movements that only her mother truly understood. But these two words were different. Officer later described it as a moment of electric stillness. He had worked with Rex for years, had seen the dog in countless high-pressure situations, drug busts, search and rescue operations, community demonstrations. Never had he witnessed anything like this. Rex's reaction, everything new about trained police dogs. The dog, who moments before had been the epitome of disciplined control, began to change. It wasn't a dramatic transformation, but a subtle shift so profound it seemed to rewrite the very nature of their relationship. His ears, previously alert but rigid, softened. The tension in his muscles, a constant state of readiness ingrained through years of intense training, began to dissolve. His eyes, which had scanned the room with professional detachment, now focused entirely on Emma. In that moment, the dog who had known chains and cruelty saw something familiar in the small girl. Both were survivors. Both had known pain that most could never comprehend. Both had learned to find safety in unexpected places. The other children in the room seemed to fade into the background. Parents stopped mid-conversation. The community center, with its worn linoleum and faded motivational posters, became a vessel for something inexplicable. Emma's mother felt something shift. As a research scientist, she was trained to observe, to analyze, to find rational explanations. But this moment, rational explanation. Her daughter, who had struggled to communicate, who had spent more time in hospitals than playgrounds, had just created a connection that seemed to bypass all conventional understanding. Officer would later struggle to describe the moment in his official report. How do you document something that seems to exist beyond the realm of normal experience? How do you explain a connection that appears to transcend species, age, and individual trauma? Rex took a step forward, not the calculated step of a trained police dog, but the gentle, almost tentative step of a being recognizing another soul. Emma did not move. She did not flinch. Her finger remained extended, her two words still seeming to vibrate in the air around them. Home safe. In that moment, the entire room seemed to hold its breath. Something fundamental was happening, a communication so pure, so unexpected, that it challenged everything everyone thought they understood about connection, about healing, about the invisible threads that bind living beings together. No one, not the parents, not the officer, not the other children, could have predicted what was about to unfold. But everyone present knew, with a certainty, that explanation, that something profound was happening. Something magical was about to begin. Officer Mark felt the world tilt on its axis. Rex, his meticulously trained police dog, a creature of discipline and precise control, was transforming before his eyes in a way that everything knew about canine behavior. Most police dogs maintained a professional distance, even during community demonstrations. They were trained to be alert, responsive, but never vulnerable. Rex had been the epitome of this professional detachment. Through years of intense training, had molded him into a perfect partner, reading signals, responding to the most subtle commands, maintaining absolute control in high-stress situations. But this was different. Rex's transformation was almost imperceptible at first, a slight softening around the eyes, a barely discernible relaxation of muscles that had been coiled with professional tension. His ears, previously held in perfect alert position, now drooped slightly, not in submission, but in something that looked remarkably like understanding. The other children in the room seemed to fade into the background. Parents stopped mid-conversation, phones forgotten, coffee cups suspended halfway to lips. Even the ambient sounds of the community center, the distant hum of fluorescent lights, the shuffle of feet, the occasional whisper, seemed to recede. Sarah's scientific mind raced. As a research scientist specializing in pediatric immunology, she was trained to observe, to analyze, to find rational explanations for seemingly inexplicable phenomena. But nothing in her extensive medical training could explain what was happening before her eyes. Emma remained absolutely still. Her tiny finger, which had moments ago pointed directly at Rex, now hung in midair. Her eyes, deep blue and impossibly old for a 3-year-old, locked with the dog's in a connection that seemed to transcend physical space. Knew Rex's history intimately. He remembered the day they had first met at the rehabilitation center, a broken dog, chained by past traumas, unable to trust. The journey from that broken animal to a confident police dog had been long and challenging. Each training session had been a careful dance of rebuilding trust, of proving safety. But this moment was different. Rex took a step forward. It wasn't the calculated, precise movement of a trained police dog. It was something more, something that looked like recognition, like understanding. He moved toward Emma with a gentleness that shocked everyone present. His massive frame, which had always been a symbol of power and discipline, now seemed to shrink, not in weakness but in vulnerability. The other police officers in the room exchanged looks of disbelief. Partner, Detective Lisa, later described it as a moment that scientific explanation. It was like watching two souls recognize each other, she would say in subsequent interviews. Not just a dog and a child, something deeper. Emma didn't react the way most children would. She didn't reach out to pet Rex. She didn't giggle or show excitement. Instead, she continued to look at the dog with an intensity that suggested she was seeing something nobody else could perceive. Those two words, home, safe, seemed to hang in the air, vibrating with an energy that was almost tangible. Remembered the countless hours of training, the precise commands, the careful conditioning, The strategy of creating a police dog that could remain detached, professional, always in control. Years of work seemed to dissolve in this single moment. Rex sat down directly in front of Emma, not in the rigid, trained posture of a police dog, but in a way that seemed almost protective, almost tender. His massive head, which could strike fear in suspects during police operations, now tilted slightly. His eyes, deep brown and filled with a complexity that seemed impossible for an animal, never left Emma's face. The room held its collective breath. Parents clutched their children. Other officers stood frozen. The community center, with its worn linoleum and faded motivational posters, had become a sacred space of something inexplicable. Sarah's hand unconsciously reached for her medical alert bracelet, a nervous habit developed through years of medical uncertainty. Her daughter, who had faced more medical challenges in 3 years than most people face in a lifetime, was creating a connection that all rational explanation. No one moved, no one spoke. Rex and Emma remained locked in their impossible communication. Two survivors, two souls who had known pain, who had learned to find safety in unexpected places. In this moment, all the barriers of species, of age, of past traumas seemed to dissolve. Something extraordinary was happening, and nobody, not the parents, not the police officers, not even himself, had any idea what was coming next. The days following the extraordinary moment in the community center became a whirlwind of investigation, speculation, and quiet wonder. Doctor, the veterinarian who had first rehabilitated Rex, found herself at the center of an unprecedented medical and behavioral investigation. In all my years of working with rescue animals, she told a gathering of behavioral specialists, I've never witnessed anything quite like this. Her office became a hub of intense discussion. Medical charts and behavioral reports spread across her large oak desk like pieces of an impossible puzzle. Sarah approached the mystery with the precision of a research scientist. She began documenting everything, every subtle interaction, every nuanced response from Emma. Years of medical training had taught her that the most significant discoveries often emerged from the most unexpected places. Preliminary investigations revealed a remarkable series of parallels between Emma and Rex. Both had survived extraordinary challenges. Both had learned to communicate in ways that conventional understanding. Their medical histories became a roadmap of resilience. Emma's medical records told a story of remarkable survival. Born 3 months premature, she had faced a rare genetic condition that had challenged every medical expectation. Her immune system was a delicate ecosystem, her body a battlefield of ongoing medical interventions. Where most would have seen weakness, Sarah saw extraordinary strength. Rex's medical history was equally complex. The veterinary team had documented his rehabilitation in meticulous detail, a journey from a severely abused animal to a confident police dog. Each page of his medical record spoke of incremental healing, of trust rebuilt millimeter by millimeter. The behavioral specialists brought in to investigate the connection were initially skeptical. Dr. Wilson, a renowned animal behaviorist, arrived with a stack of notebooks and a healthy dose of professional skepticism. Scientifically impossible, he muttered during his first interview. But the evidence was undeniable. Subsequent tests revealed something extraordinary. Emma demonstrated an empathy that went beyond typical child development. Her ability to read emotional states, both in humans and animals, was off the charts. Psychological evaluations suggested she possessed a form of emotional intelligence that was nearly unprecedented. Rex underwent a series of comprehensive medical and psychological evaluations. Officer provided detailed accounts of their years together, creating a comprehensive profile of the dog's behavioral patterns. Every test, every observation seemed to circle around the same inexplicable truth. Something had happened in that community center that traditional scientific explanation. Local media caught wind of the story. Miracle dog and girl create unexplained connection, read one headline. Social media buzzed with speculation. Amateur videos of the moment began to circulate, each view revealing new layers of the mysterious interaction. Sarah found herself at the center of a storm of scientific and public interest. Researchers from around the country began reaching out, requesting interviews, proposing studies. Each conversation peeled back another layer of the extraordinary connection. "It's not about what we can explain," she would later say in a groundbreaking medical conference, "but about what we can learn from moments of unexplained connection." Emma continued to show remarkable progress. Her medical challenges, while still present, seemed to be responding to treatments in ways that previous expectations. Her doctors were cautiously optimistic, using words like unprecedented and miraculous in their reports. Rex's behavior changed subtly but significantly. Officer noticed a new depth to their partnership. The dog seemed more intuitive, more connected not just to, but to the community they served. It was as if the interaction with Emma had unlocked something deeper in his understanding. The investigation became more than just a medical or behavioral study. It transformed into an exploration of connection, of the invisible threads that bind living beings together in ways we can barely comprehend. Doctor summed it up best during a late-night conversation with Sarah. "Some connections," she said, her voice soft in the dimly lit medical research facility, "happen beyond the realm of what we can scientifically measure. They exist in a space between understanding and mystery." As autumn turned to winter, the story of Emma and Rex continued to unfold. What had begun as a moment in a community center had become something far more profound, a testament to the extraordinary ways that healing can happen, to the connections that exist beyond words, beyond species, beyond our limited understanding. The mystery remained, but so did the hope. The story of Emma and Rex spread like wildfire, transcending the boundaries of their small Midwestern town. What had begun as a seemingly isolated incident in a community center became a catalyst for profound social change. School district was the first to respond. Principal, a forward-thinking educator with 2 decades of experience, saw an opportunity that went far beyond a simple viral news story. She convened an emergency meeting with school board members, local healthcare professionals, and community leaders. "This isn't just about a girl and a dog," she argued passionately during a packed school board meeting. "This is about understanding connection, about recognizing the extraordinary potential in those we often overlook." Within weeks, a groundbreaking program took shape. The Empathy and Connection initiative launched with unprecedented support. Local hospitals, schools, and community centers began developing programs that integrated animal-assisted therapy in ways never before attempted. Sarah found herself at the center of this transformation. Her background in pediatric immunology, combined with her personal experience with Emma, made her the perfect bridge between scientific research and community implementation. The medical community's response was equally revolutionary. Doctor organized a symposium that drew researchers from across the country. Presentations explored the intricate connections between emotional intelligence, trauma recovery, and interspecies communication. Emma and Rex became case studies, living proof of possibilities that had previously existed only in theoretical discussions. Local police departments began their K-9 training programs. Officer was invited to speak at law enforcement conferences, sharing the story of Rex's transformation. His presentations challenged long-held beliefs about animal training, emphasizing emotional intelligence over strict disciplinary methods. Children with special needs found themselves at the center of a new conversation. Schools began implementing programs that recognized different forms of communication, different ways of understanding the world. Emma became an unexpected symbol of hope, a reminder that limitation is often just a matter of perspective. The local media's coverage evolved. What had started as a feel-good human interest story became a serious exploration of empathy, connection, and human potential. Documentarians began approaching Sarah, requesting interviews, hoping to capture the nuanced story of Emma's journey. Unexpected connections began to emerge. Support groups for children with rare medical conditions found new hope. Parents who had felt isolated began sharing stories, creating networks of support that extended far beyond medical diagnoses. Rex's Rehabilitation Center saw a surge of interest. People from across the country began requesting information about animal therapy programs, about the potential for healing that existed beyond traditional medical interventions. The local community center, the site of the original miraculous moment, became a symbol of transformation. A small plaque was installed, commemorating the day when everything changed. Some connections, it read, transcend explanation. Sarah found herself navigating a complex landscape of scientific inquiry and public interest. Research grants began to flow, providing unprecedented opportunities to study the intricate connections between emotional intelligence, medical recovery, and interspecies communication. Emma continued to develop in ways that surprised her medical team. Her ability to connect, to understand, seemed to grow stronger. Where doctors had once spoken in hushed, cautious tones, they now used words of wonder and possibility. Officer noticed changes in Rex that went beyond their professional partnership. The dog seemed more intuitive, more connected to the community they served. Their work took on a deeper meaning, less about enforcement, more about genuine connection. The ripple effect touched unexpected corners of the community. Local businesses began implementing more compassionate workplace practices. Schools developed curriculum that emphasized emotional intelligence. Healthcare providers started looking beyond traditional diagnostic models. Dr. Wilson, the behavioral specialist who had initially been skeptical, became one of the most vocal advocates for a more holistic approach to understanding communication and connection. "We've been looking in the wrong places," he would later write in a groundbreaking medical journal. "The most profound connections often happen in the spaces between what we can easily explain." As winter turned to spring, the story of Emma and Rex continued to inspire. They had become more than just a remarkable incident. They were a testament to the extraordinary potential that exists when we open ourselves to understanding, to connection, to the possibility of something beyond our current comprehension. The miracle, it seemed, was just beginning. The years passed, and the story of Emma and Rex became more than just a memory. It became a living, breathing testament to the power of connection. Emma entered adolescence with a grace that belied her challenging early years. Her medical challenges had not disappeared, but they had transformed. Where doctors had once spoken in whispers of limitations, they now discussed possibilities. Her rare genetic condition, once a source of constant medical intervention, had become a landscape of unexpected resilience. Rex, now retired from active police work, had found a new purpose. No longer the rigid, disciplined police dog, he had become something more, a bridge between worlds, a living symbol of healing and hope. Their connection remained as profound as it had been on that autumn day in the community center. Sarah documented everything, her scientific mind meeting her maternal heart in a delicate balance of observation and love. Research papers, medical journals, and countless interviews told only a fraction of their remarkable story. The Empathy and Connection Initiative had grown beyond anyone's initial expectations. What had begun as a local program had become a national model for understanding trauma, healing, and interspecies communication. Schools across the country implemented curriculum that emphasized emotional intelligence, drawing directly from the lessons learned from Emma and Rex. Officer Mark, now nearing retirement, continued to share their story. His presentations had evolved from simple police training seminars to profound explorations of connection, empathy, and understanding. He spoke not just as a police officer, but as a witness to something extraordinary. Emma discovered her calling early. Inspired by her own journey, she began working with animal-assisted therapy programs. Her ability to connect, a skill that had always set her apart, became her greatest strength. Children with medical challenges, those struggling with communication, found in her a beacon of hope. Rex accompanied her to many of these sessions. The once traumatized police dog had become a gentle guardian, his presence a source of comfort for children facing their own challenges. Where he had once been a symbol of discipline and control, he now represented healing and possibility. The medical community continued to study their connection. Doctor had dedicated her entire research career to understanding the profound bond between Emma and Rex. Their case had opened up entire new fields of study, exploring the intricate connections between emotional intelligence, trauma recovery, and interspecies communication. Sarah found herself at the forefront of a medical revolution. Her daughter's journey had transformed her from a research scientist to a global advocate for a more holistic approach to medical treatment. She spoke at international conferences, wrote groundbreaking books, challenged existing medical paradigms. The local community center where their story began had been transformed. A memorial wall now showcased their journey, photographs, research papers, testimonials that told the story of a moment that changed everything. School groups would visit, listening in awe to the tale of the girl and the dog who had redefined understanding. Rex's health began to decline, a natural progression for a dog who had lived a life of extraordinary service. But even in his aging, he remained a source of inspiration. Emma's connection with him never wavered. She understood, perhaps better than anyone, the language of healing, of survival, of unconditional connection. Their story had become more than just a personal journey. It was a testament to the human capacity for understanding, for breaking down barriers that seemed insurmountable. Emma's medical challenges, Rex's traumatic past, these were not limitations, but starting points for something remarkable. Local and national media continued to follow their journey. Documentaries, books, academic studies all attempted to capture the essence of their connection. But something always remained just beyond explanation, a magic that could be felt but not fully articulated. Officer would often reflect on that day in the community center, the moment when everything changed. The two words home, safe, that had transformed not just two lives but an entire community's understanding of connection. As Emma prepared to enter college, studying a unique interdisciplinary program combining medical research, animal psychology, and therapeutic communication, the world watched with anticipation. Rex, though older now, remained her constant companion, a living reminder of a connection that explanation. Their story was far from over. In many ways, it was just beginning. The miracle continued to unfold, one day at a time. The final chapter of Emma and Rex's story unfolded not with drama, but with a quiet, profound grace that seemed to echo their entire journey. Rex passed away on a crisp autumn morning, almost exactly 15 years after that remarkable day in the community center. He died surrounded by love, with Emma holding his hand, Sarah nearby, an officer sitting quietly in the corner of the room. It was a peaceful transition, befitting a life that had transformed so many others. The veterinarian who had been caring for Rex in his final months remarked that she had never seen an animal so deeply connected to a human. Medical records, research papers, years of documentation, none could fully capture the essence of their bond. Emma, now a renowned researcher and therapist, delivered a eulogy that would be remembered for years to come. Standing before a room filled with medical professionals, animal behaviorists, and those whose lives had been touched by their story, she spoke not of loss, but of transformation. Rex was never just a dog, she began, her voice steady. He was a bridge, a connection between what we understand and what we can't yet comprehend. He taught me that healing is not about fixing, but about understanding. The Empathy and Connection Initiative, which had grown from that single moment in the community center, had become a global movement. Research centers around the world now studied the profound connections between humans and animals, between trauma and healing, between what can be measured and what can only be felt. Sarah, now a leading voice in holistic medical research, continued to document their journey. Her research had transformed entire approaches to pediatric medicine, animal-assisted therapy, and understanding trauma recovery. The medical community that had once spoken of Emma's challenges in hushed, cautious tones now celebrated her as a beacon of possibility. Officer Mark, fully retired but still actively involved in community outreach, became a sought-after speaker. His talks were less about law enforcement and more about human connection, about the extraordinary potential that exists when we open ourselves to understanding. Rex's legacy lived on in unexpected ways. The rehabilitation center where he had first been rescued now trained therapy animals with an approach that emphasized emotional intelligence over strict discipline. Countless animals, dogs, horses, even smaller companion animals, found new purpose through programs inspired by his journey. Emma's work expanded beyond traditional medical research. She developed innovative therapy programs that bridged multiple disciplines: animal psychology, medical treatment, emotional healing. Children with medical challenges, those struggling with communication, found in her a revolutionary approach to understanding. The community center where their story began had become a national landmark of sorts. A memorial wall told their story, photographs, research papers, testimonials that spoke of a moment that had changed everything. School groups would visit, listening in awe to the tale of the girl and the dog who had redefined understanding. On the anniversary of Rex's passing, a foundation was established in his name. The Rex and Emma Connection Foundation focused on supporting research into animal-assisted therapy, providing resources for children with rare medical conditions, and exploring the profound ways that connection can heal. Sarah reflected on their journey during a quiet moment at the Foundation's first major conference. The little girl who had been given such slim chances of survival had not just survived, she had transformed understanding itself. The dog who had been rescued from the brink of destruction had become a symbol of hope. Some connections, Sarah would often say, echoing words spoken years ago by Dr. happen beyond the realm of what we can scientifically measure. They exist in a space between understanding and mystery. Emma continued to push the boundaries of medical and psychological research. Her work drew from her personal experience, the moment in the community center, her lifelong connection with Rex, her understanding of what it means to survive, to heal, to connect. The two words that had started everything home, safe, became more than just a memory. They became a philosophy, a way of understanding the world that transcended species, medical conditions, past traumas. As the sun set on another day, casting long shadows across the research center where Emma worked, the legacy of that moment continued to unfold. Rex was gone, but his spirit lived on. In the lives touched, in the research advanced, in the understanding deepened. Some stories, it seemed, never truly end. They simply transform, continuing to inspire, to heal, to connect. The miracle, after all, was never about a single moment. It was about the endless possibility of connection.